All right, thanks guys for coming in for today's GBM. If you guys can scan the QR code real quick so we can record the attendance for today's GBM. If you guys haven't done so already. So it seems like none of you guys are bringing out your phones. You guys already did. So all right, I'll take that as a yes. But we just have one quick announcement. Tomorrow, we'll be having a bowling event tomorrow. So if you guys are interested in bowling, it'll be at 4:30 p.m. If you guys want to scan the QR code so we can know how many people are going to show up to bowling, so we can get the required food and drinks for people that are gonna show up. But I mean, I think it's be a pretty good opportunity for you guys to like kind of just relax, kind of chill, hang around with the club members and friends, and kind of just eat food and bowl and kind of just make fun of each other, just in case no one's good at bowling. But other than that, obviously we have our guest speaker today, Susanna from Northrop, that's here to present any knowledge in the engineering industry and to provide any answers to you guys' questions that you guys may have for her at the end of her presentation. But I'll give it away to Susanna. Give her a round of applause, but thank you for being here.
Okay, so since we are a smaller group today, I want this to be more interactive and I want you guys to be engaged, so just feel free to interrupt me anytime and maybe talk about yourselves as well. I don't want it to be all about me, but I'm a senior systems engineer at Northrop Grumman. We actually have a pretty large presence in Southern California. Throughout the entire United States, we have about 95,000 employees. We are located all around the world. In Southern California, we have a very large campus in Space Park, El Segundo area, so as well as San Francisco, and here in San Diego. So we have 3 campuses across 2 sectors, mission systems and the aerospace sector in Rancho Bernardo, Rancho Carmel, and Spectrum. I believe we have around 5,000 employees in just San Diego, so we're quite large. We're one of the top, I think, 3 defense contractors. I think in the top 3 is Lockheed Martin, Northrop, and Boeing. But that changes whenever you check the news. So I've been at Northrop about 9 years. I came in with an applied math degree, not an engineering degree. So to become an engineer, you just need a STEM degree. So it could be a computer science degree, a mathematics degree, or engineering. I applied for a T1 position, which is entry level. And then once I got hired, they started me at a T2 level because I also had my master's at that time. So I started in modeling and simulation. So a lot of my mathematics background really came into play during while I was doing modeling and simulation for Triton. So Triton, if you guys don't know, is like similar to Global Hawk. You might have heard of Global Hawk, but Triton is a unmanned air vehicle. And how Triton is different from Global Hawk is long range altitudes. Triton actually has the ability to come down if it sees something in the ocean or like a ship or something it wants to collect intelligence on. It'll come down closer to get more pictures and then be able to come back up. So that's kind of the primary or one of the differences between a Triton and a Global Hawk. I've worked on several platforms, some of them I can't name. One of the more recent ones I worked on was the F-35, which is pretty cool. So we actually have a couple of F-35s here in Myanmar. And I encourage you guys to, whatever career you go into, to always try to work on different platforms that have like different types of capabilities, because for me, working on a drone like Triton and then working on a fighter jet or a manned platform like F-35 was 2 really big differences. I mean, can someone tell me one of the biggest difference, just like right off the bat, when you think of like a warfighter like F-35 versus Triton, a drone?
The human factor?
Yeah, so that's the biggest one, is the human factor. Now you have a pilot, you have to, the human factors component is going to be, or human factors engineering is going to be completely different on an F-35 versus something like Triton, where there is no pilot. It's completely autonomous. An F-35 is not autonomous. So currently I just started on Sentinel. It was previously called GBSD, and that stands for the Intercontinental ballistic missile system, and this has been one of the largest military contracts that have ever been awarded to any defense contractor. We were awarded $13 billion to start off with in 2020, and the estimate is when we're done, it's probably going to cost around $100 billion. And we're redoing the entire Minuteman III missiles that were built in 1970. So it's about 400 of those missiles that we're rebuilding, and that is part of the land-based triad of our nuclear weapons program. It is one of our top military initiatives, and one of the top 3 initiatives for our CEO as well is to be able to build a current missile defense, because right now the ones that we build, Minuteman III in the 1970s, they're going to be OBE pretty soon. So redoing that entire thing from the launch centers to launch facilities to the ICC, which is the Intercontinental Command areas, is a pretty big job. And that's, I think the initial contract for that is like 70 years. So some of these programs are just so long. Like you know, there's a joke, you could actually retire on one of the programs if you wanted to. I don't ever encourage that. I think you should definitely do a rotation and experience like different types of platforms and programs to learn different technologies. Another really cool thing about Sentinel is it's one of the first, one of the first programs where we're trying to be all digital. And what that means is a lot of model-based systems engineering. So it's like creating digital twins of the missiles, because of the nuclear treaty that we have, we're really not allowed to test these missiles. So what we want to do is create digital twins of these, you know, using various software tools. Cameo is a big one that we use right now. And to, instead of working the requirements in like a IBM tool called DOORS, which is very popular among systems engineers, we want to be able to model that so that we can do all the testing in the software instead of doing live testing, if that makes sense. So it's really cool because we're working on like new technologies. We're trying to be all digital, which is great for if you think environmental footprints as well on some of this stuff. So, okay, I feel like I spoke a lot now. If you don't mind, I think we have a small enough group where we can kind of go around the room. If everybody could just like say their name and what major they're in and like maybe what interests you.
Oh, all right, I'll go first. I'm Joseph. I'm a mechanical engineering student. I'm a 4th year. I guess I would say, yeah, what interests me is kind of like dealing with like military contracts, how you were saying, dealing with those type of contracts, because it seemed just very interesting, and it seems like a very good opportunity to kind of learn how, just kind of see how like everything is worked through that environment. That's what kind of interests me.
Hello everybody, my name is Joaquin Long. I'm an aerospace engineer, and forgive me, but what was the third question?
What interests you?
What interests me? Aerospace interests me. I like rocket and propulsions, so thank you.
That's actually, we were the sole source competitor when we went for the GBSD contract because we specialized in solid rockets.
Hi, my name is Gio. I'm a mechanical engineering student, 3rd year. What interests me is like automotive design and like aircraft design as well. So yeah.
I'm Megan. I'm Megan. I'm a 3rd year mechanical engineering student, and I think all areas of engineering interest me, but more specifically going into like medical devices and biotechnology.
My name is Logan. I'm a 1st year mechie with a business and bio, and I'm kind of the same with medical devices and like prosthetics engineering.
My name is Cormac. I'm a 3rd year mechanical engineer. I've been looking into like thermodynamics and stuff recently. I actually had a question.
Yeah.
So you said your major was math?
Applied mathematics and
Applied math.
statistics. Mm-hmm.
So how is so now you're doing a lot of stuff with like modeling and software. Did you find like that was a smooth transition for you, or was there kind of a learning curve?
Okay, I'm gonna let you in on a secret. A lot of the stuff that we do, we learn on the job. So I feel that being in school provides a simple foundation, but then when you're in the workspace, because a lot of it is new technologies. Like there was no thing as a systems engineering major in colleges universities for a long time. So it is very important with what you guys are doing to learn the basic technical foundations. Like if you're learning coding, understanding the differences in language and being able to code, being able to understand algorithms and how equations work, because you're gonna have to take that and transfer that knowledge into the new technologies that we're using. They don't teach that in school. So the transition is, some of it was smooth because it just happened to be that I was in modeling and simulation, so it was a lot of documentation and a lot of software. And then we used to run Monte Carlo simulations like Drunken Cockroach. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that. But some of those skills are transferable in what you do. So it's extremely important to be able to transfer or adapt to new things. And then it's also really important to continue your education. And I think this is for every area, actually. Whatever field you go into is to be able to continue your studies. It's definitely true for medical, I know that. But it's especially true for engineering, because they always, there's always a new AI that came out, machine learning that's come out, with the program that I'm currently on. It's about creating digital twins now using model-based systems engineering, which we haven't done before. So what Northrop does a good job of is that they provide a lot of training and they provide a lot of classes, and then you can take a class or a certificate and learn it yourself. But you have to have that initiative and the drive to be able to learn those new skills yourself. Otherwise, you become stale very quickly. So we're partnered with like Caltech, for example, and we have the professors come on site and they do courses for us. So that's how I got my systems engineering certificate through Caltech once I started at Northrop, because it didn't exist when I went to school. That wasn't a major back then, but I just took this 9-month certificate when I was there. And right now I'm learning Cameo, which is a model-based tool, and you just kind of build, like I can build this room using Cameo. I think it's not the same, but similar to CADing, which is probably relevant for mechanical engineers. But how it's different from CADing is that in Cameo, you're able to tie it to the requirements on another tool called Doors, where all the requirements live. And then, is this the first time as anybody hearing of like requirements? Yeah, okay. So why requirements are so important? It's like the foundation of what systems engineers do. And you'll be working with systems engineers in your fields if you don't become one yourself. A lot of folks actually become, like they'll start as a mechanical or a software and then they transition into systems engineering. Because as a systems engineer, you can specialize in software or mechanical or so forth. But one of the most basic things that we do is work with requirements. And it's like, I mean, the example I was giving Joaquin is like, say you're a customer and you want to build your own custom Tesla. You have to go to Tesla and you say, okay, I want my car to be black. I want my car to have like 6 windows. I want it to go like 500 mile range. So you give them like, to start out with these basic requirements, and then they take that and they actually the engineers will take that, like your wish list, so to speak, and they have to break it down into a level where the rest of the engineers can operate. So they may say, okay, customer wants a 500 mile range. So what does that mean? So they have to break it down into a couple of levels down so that they can pass it on to the software engineers, and the software engineers can take that and then code based off what those requirements are. And then it gets passed down to the test engineer. Sometimes mechanical engineers have to CAD something out if they're trying to design a part for the car that's new, not readily out in the market. All of this stuff we have to make, actually, because it's not like we can just buy one. And then the test engineers will take that after it's been coded, and then test it out in the lab. So maybe they'll create a digital twin of the type of car that you want it to be designed, and just test it out to see if it can go that 500 mile range. But it all starts with requirements, with how it should operate.
Alright, thank you. I'm Jake. I'm a third-year mechanical engineer, and I'm really interested in aircraft design.
Hi guys, I'm Mohammed. I'm a second-year aerospace engineering major, and I'm interested in propulsions and structures, but also I'm leaning towards more of a business and project management approach as well.
I'm Paulette. I'm a mechanical engineer with the bioengineering emphasis. I am mostly interested in medical devices, but I also like nanotechnology, so I feel like that could get tied into drones maybe or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I feel like we definitely see that in the future.
I'm Katie. I'm a third-year mechanical engineering with a bioemphasis, and I'm really interested in prosthetics or biotech.
I'm Marcus. I'm a third-year mechanical engineer major. I'm kind of interested in manufacturing, kind of. Not really sure what industry, and then also operations and project management.
I'm Nate. I'm a second-year mechanical engineering, and I'm also interested in manufacturing and definitely more like product design too, but I'm still not really sure.
We just redid our entire manufacturing process. It's really important to what we do. We have a couple of manufacturing COEs, which is Center of Excellence. One is in Salt Lake City, Utah, but we have several everywhere. But it's a big part of what we do, manufacturing.
My name is Preston. I'm a second-year mechanical engineer. What interests me is solid rockets and development of those.
I'm Megan. I'm a second-year aerospace engineering student, and I'm interested in the rocket side of aerospace and the manufacturing process as well.
Hi, I'm Yumi. I'm a third-year mechanical engineering with an emphasis in bioengineering student, and I'm interested mostly in medical devices and other bioengineering applications.
So I'm hearing a lot of rockets, which is great for me because that's what I work on. So it's just perfect. I'm hearing a lot of aerospace, and I'm hearing a lot of bio-industry stuff. I think what's really lacking right now is the integration of engineering and the medical world. And I don't know why. I don't know why the engineers and the medical folks don't talk to each other, because there's just so much innovation that could happen in that space. I mean, a lot of the technologies that we use can definitely be used in the medical world, and I don't see it at all. So I hope that you guys can change that, when in the future, because there's just so much potential there that we really need to happen, and it's not. I mean, one of the things that I worked on or I had thought of was, I did a little startup for a little bit, but it was just, being able to create or build drones that can deliver organs to hospitals. And there's just so much red tape around it. I know Amazon's been working for 10 years testing drones to deliver their products instead of, using trucks. And there's no downside to using drones for deliveries, because when you think about it environmentally, I mean, it's just leaves almost no footprint compared to using cars and trucks and planes to deliver products. So when I was doing the research into it, Amazon said 90% of its deliveries weigh less than 5 or 10 pounds. So it's small, the payload is small enough where a drone is more than capable of being able to deliver these products instead of using trucks and the post office and all of this stuff. It's also a lot faster because you're not dealing with traffic. And in the area that I looked into, which was medical, is being able to deliver organs during transplants, because some of the organs like kidneys have the longest shelf life. I think it's 20 plus hours that it can survive outside of a body, and that's a perfect candidate for a drone delivery, because it would just go right to the helipad of a hospital from the organ transplant center. People right now carry organs on planes, and they'll fly with it, and then you have to drive with with the organ, and there's just so much room for human error, and then the shelf life of the organ itself has to be much longer to be able to go through such a long journey like that. Whereas if you had a drone that delivered this organ, it would just, like in LA, there's a UCSC Keck hospital, and they do a lot of kidney transplants there. So a place like that where the traffic is just, I think one of the worst in the U.S. You know, that imagine having to take a taxi or Uber or something to the hospital because they're waiting for your kidney. We're just not there yet. I feel like the technology is there, but we're not, we're not communicating. I don't know. So I hope you guys can develop like these amazing, cool technologies that we can use in the medical field. That's just my 2 cents. So any questions for me?
For your manufacturing process, do you guys use 3D printing at all?
Yes. Yeah. Zay, do you want to tell them about the 3D printer you saw on the campus?
When I was on a tour, they used a 3D printer to print model versions of the plane. So
I think they did that for fun, but we do have like this. We have several 3D printers. One of them is like a $500,000 3D printer, and we have one right in our campus in Rancho Carmel where we just print out parts instead of having to order it. And for a while the supply chain was a mess, especially during COVID. And some of these are specialized parts, so we just code it and just feed it to the 3D printer. So yeah, we do a lot of that. And just build like special, because sometimes our site specializes in comms, like communications. So we are down at the circuit level or at the box level of some of the communication devices that we build for a lot of the fighter jets. And so these items are so specialized that it just makes sense for us to 3D print it and build it ourselves instead of buying it. Because also the other thing is too, everything that we or anything that we purchase has to be made in the US. We cannot buy anything, even if it's like Canada or whatever country it is, we cannot buy from there. It has to be, every single part that goes into those warfighters has to be made here in the US. So that's another limitation that we have.
What kind of 3D printing do you guys use?
I couldn't tell you the exact 3D printer it was, but I can find that out, and you can send me an email, and I can get back to you on that. Yeah.
So you use it for more large scale stuff, or is it?
No, more like components.
Oh, very.
Yeah, or even like handles, because we have test stations. So even like little latches or handles, or just more of the small items. Yeah.
You know what standards you guys follow regarding manufacturing?
I don't, but there are so many standards. But I don't know the exact standards. It's usually dictated by the customer to follow certain. It's part of the requirements. Like they'll say use MIL standard 810. I think that's a human factors one. Or a safety one. So, but I don't know the exact document number off the top of my head. But it's also on, like if you type MIL standard for manufacturing, there should be a couple that pop up too, because that's all public information.
Okay. You kind of went over during COVID. What was that like working at Northrop during those times?
It was challenging times for sure. We did fall into an essential category, but we were fighting for parts with the medical folks. I remember there was this one valve I felt like that was so hard to get. The lead times just jumped through the roof, and so did the pricing. So we had to get innovative real quick. We did have it. So we were essential workers at that time. It was very challenging because for anyone that was not in engineering, they were allowed to work from home. But if you needed to come into the lab, like for F-35, we have to work in a classified lab for all of our testing. And a lot of the coding that we do too is all done in a classified lab. They have to come in. We have to come in. So some of the folks, we never changed a beat. They came in every single day. We at one point where things got really strict and you weren't even allowed to leave your house, we had a note that our VP passed down from like Washington, DC, was like, okay, if you get pulled over, then just show them this note. So it felt like a doctor's note, like, I'm allowed to go to work, like here's my note. But one good thing is, like during the vaccine time, I was able to get it a little quicker than other folks, like definitely below, I think, teachers and medical personnel, but then like right under that, I forgot, there was a hierarchy. I think it was like senior citizens, then it was people in the medical field, teachers, but then we were like in the category right below that. So I guess it was a little faster getting our vaccine, but you know, I feel like our engineers went through a lot though, because they still had to go into the lab, and yeah, you're supposed to be 6 feet apart, but that's not realistic. The test stations are like this small and you're kind of working together. You know, you can't be 6 feet apart. So I know they tried their best. We had to set up like hand sanitization systems, give out like masks. We hired folks to take people's temperatures every day, but we were very accommodating and very flexible even up until now. It's just our policy is just like common sense. If you cannot do your job at home and you can only do your job in the lab, then come in and work in the lab. But if you don't have to and you can still do your job at home, then it's okay to be at home. So there's no strict enforcement of you have to come into the office 2 days a week or 3 days a week. You know, it's just come into the office if it makes sense for you to get your job done. If you can't get your job done and you want to work from home, then work from home. So I feel like it's like common sense at that point. I know there's a lot of companies out there who are enforcing that you have to come into the office like 2 or 3 times a week, but there's no reasoning behind that except that we just want you to come into the office. But it's been proven during COVID that you can still get your work done without having to go into the office.
What has your progression through the company looked like?
I was actually a adjunct mathematics professor. This is my second career before I entered Northrop. So I still applied to a T1 position. There was like they told me there was 100 people that applied to that position. And I had to go through a phone interview and then a panel interview. At that time it was in person. I will give you this tip. So there's 100 people that applied for this job, for this entry-level T1 position. And you go through the phone interview. If you pass the phone interview, I don't know how many folks came to the in-person interview, but it's definitely intimidating because you come in and you sign your name, and this is during in-person. You probably may not even have to deal with this, but you see the list of all the candidates before you that came in and interviewed, and you're like, oh my God, I'm like the 10th person that they're interviewing today. And then you're in the conference room, and this is, at least now if it's virtual, you can have your notes and you can have computer screens in front of you if you needed to, but I guess back in the day, before COVID, it was, you have the chief engineer, you have 2 or 3 managers, you have like 5 people around you, just round table questioning, which can be so intimidating. And one of the guys asked me, he's like, okay, write a line of code on the board. And I was just like, I don't know C, so I'm not gonna do that. But I got the job because I found out later on that they asked another candidate to do that, and he went up on the board and he got it wrong. So never ever lie on an interview, because they'll call you out on it. It's always best to just be honest. And I've done so many interviews where they have all of the keywords on the resume and like, oh, I'm agile and I'm this and I'm that. And I was like, oh, this person's like knows everything. And then I'll ask them like, okay, so what's your experience with agile? And they're like, oh, working faster. And I was like, no, that's just that's not what it means. It means, okay, what tools do you use? I use Jira. Have you done Scrum Master training? Have you done product owner training? Like it was just pure BS. And these are smart people. They'll call you out on your BS. So don't lie in an interview. And even if you don't know, so at that time, because I was transitioning within careers, I didn't have any experience in engineering that I could talk about. So I certainly wasn't trying to sit there and act like I was this master coder or, I had all this experience. And I pulled out a trade study I was doing on kitchen appliances because I was renovating my kitchen. And I was like, this is engineering, like this trade study I did on kitchen appliances. And I looked at all the specs for each of the fridges and the measurements, and they liked that. And they saw like this passion. And I mean, I got the job, and of course I had a recommendation from my advisor too. It wasn't just that, but they want to see that you're good at something. And they want to see that you have passion, because like I mentioned before, most of the stuff you're going to learn is on the job. All these new technologies that we're going to have 10 years from now, they don't exist today. So they want to see that you have passion in something and you're able to, any project that you do in school that you did really well, and talk about that in an interview. So I started out like nothing. And then I went into model-based systems engineering. And what's good in our company is that wherever your passion is where you can pursue. So you can start out in engineering and then go into program management, or you can go into business, which I've done as well. The opportunity is there. So I just kind of started new. I was a T2. Within a year, I became a CAM, which is a cost account manager. And what that means is usually the IPT or the lead engineers in those each technical area own the budget. So I was in modeling and simulation. I also had human factors engineers under me. And then by becoming a CAM or cost account manager, I was responsible for writing justifications of why we were behind schedule, as well as managing the schedule, or why we were behind budget. I don't have to run the numbers. I just have to justify them technically. Like, okay, we were behind because, the debugging took longer than we anticipated. Or it wasn't just a simple update, it was actually an entire redo. So those are the explanations that I had to talk about as a lead. I did that for a few years, and then I rotated out of AS or aerospace sector, and I jumped into a different sector, mission systems, and I started working on a classified program at that time. So I feel like when you jump programs or you don't even have to leave the company. You just learn more and you progress faster. So when I went to a different sector, they gave me the opportunity to excel, because I was kind of stuck on Triton. We were having a lot of issues on one of our contracts where we asked for like 400 million, 900 million. They came back with like 400 million, and it was just like a 6-month negotiation phase. And I feel like a lot of us weren't getting promoted because of all of these negotiations going on. So just don't be scared to jump when you become stagnant. Even if it's, what's good about us is that we're big enough to be able to jump within company without having to make a huge change. So I jumped to a different sector, a different program. I got promoted within a year of doing that, and I became a T3. From there, I went into management and I became a functional manager 1. And what functional managers do in a matrix organization is you have your functional managers and then you have your task managers. So your task or program managers are the ones providing you the tasking and the work, and the functional managers are the ones making sure you're employed, you have a job, you're happy, your year-end ratings, things like that. So I became a functional manager, but that's only 20% of my job. 80% is still technical. And then after that, I switched back over to senior engineering. So I went and became a T4. And that was a big jump in not just salary, but just focusing on being more technical and not wanting to have anything to do with people problems, and just focusing on learning new technologies, because we do have new technologies that we need to learn right now for Sentinel. So I wanted to fully focus on that. And then my next step this year, I'm hoping for, is to become an M2 or a senior manager, and that will still be functional management, and it's a lot of managing engineers, making sure they're happy, making sure they're being paid at the appropriate allocation levels, arranging happy hours, team events, team engagements, but still remaining 80% technical and working on your project. So sometimes it's not like going up the ladder. Sometimes it's like a jungle gym, which is what I did. I just went from here to here. So that's another way of progressing. So yeah, well.
So with those management positions that you then earned, did you have any sort of leadership, business management experience, or that's part of the learning on the job and kind of mentoring stuff that happens in the company?
You don't have to go through a formal leadership course. I think some folks are more intuitive, natural leaders than others, and you see that quite a lot amongst engineers. They're not social. They don't like to deal with schedules and politics and all of that. They just want to be in the lab and they just want to do their work. A lot of engineers are like that in my experience. So I feel like it's more intuitive, but you should be taking soft skills. There are courses that we encourage and conferences and things like that. And I've personally done a lot of that, like active listening, how to deal with conflicts. These are soft skill courses that are provided to us, and we do need to take those. Sexual harassment, which in California is like really heavy. There's like 5 different sexual harassment classes that we have to take. I don't know, but there is training for managers. But I also think a lot of it is some people are just natural born leaders, I think. If you don't like talking to other people, if you don't like socializing, if you're not good at bringing people together, I don't know how much of that can be taught, to be honest. But there is a lot to learn, though. Active listening is not intuitive for most people. It's really a skill that needs to be learned. And there's a big emphasis on leadership. So our CEO, Kathy Warden, just came out this week with a roundtable discussion, just asking everybody to step up and what it means to have leadership skills and to be able to implement that, because our end of year rankings or ratings, 50% is how you displayed leadership, 50% is technical. So I forgot, there's a quote, I'm trying to remember, but it was basically something like, yeah, your degree will get you in the door, but your leadership skills is what going to carry you into your progression of your career. And I have that problem all the time at work, where it's just I might have someone really smart, really capable, but they just don't communicate with other members of the team, and that just doesn't work. And not only that, but when you become really good, you have to mentor other engineers and pass that on. And you have to work with other engineers, other technical teams, and be able to work together, because it's all connected. The systems engineers have to work with the software engineers, have to work with the VHDL engineers, have to work with the test and integration engineers. So leadership is extremely important. Yeah.
How's your work-life balance? Like, do you have time outside of work? Because it sounds like a very busy position.
No, on the contrary, it's pretty flexible. Every program, though, every team is going to be different. When I was on F-35, it was very busy. It was literally 8 to 5, sometimes even longer, depending upon the issues you were dealing with. That was harder with work-life balance because it was so challenging, and we were really significantly behind schedule. But right now, what I'm on Sentinel, that has been a lot more flexible. It took 3 months to redo. I don't know. They have to check everybody's clearance levels again. So during that time, I was just able to do training and reading, because all of that work is in the classified level. So up until you get your classifications approved, there's no program work for you. So I had a little bit of a downtime during that time, but also it just depends on what phase in the program you're in, what role you're in. That can vary quite a bit, but it depends on how much you want to take on as well. So I actually dropped out of my functional management role so that I could focus 100% on just technical and have no distractions, and not be so inundated, because it's like you're reading a technical document which you need full concentration for, but then you have meetings pinging up every 30 minutes or so, and so it's hard to focus. So I wanted to just focus on that. Right now, we have a lot of flexibility for most of our engineers on Sentinel because we're early on in the program. So the priority has been on our IMS, or Integrated Master Schedule. So a lot of our leads have been working on the schedule. So we've just been doing like the requirements work and just figuring out, what the customer wants. But if I want to come here and just take a 2-hour lunch, I can. No one's really watching the clock to see what time you come in. Like my mom's all the time like, do you even have a job? Do you work? Can you just...
I do.
They're like, what are you doing? But it doesn't matter what hours you work. It matters that you get the job done, and that if there's meetings, I attend the meetings or dial in. Like I had a meeting at 11:30, but I was also driving here, so I just dialed in the car on my way here. We definitely have that flexibility, and that's what I really love about it. There's no mandatory you have to come into the office. There's no mandatory you have to be in the office 8 hours a day, 9 to 5. If you want to take a 2-hour lunch and go to a doctor's appointment, or if you want to pick up your kid in the morning, go pick up your kid, go drop off your kid, go do your doctor's appointments during the day. Just get your work done. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter when you get your work done. I mean, it has to be in a timely manner, obviously. Don't get it done 3 months from now, but it doesn't matter what hours in the day you're getting your work done, as long as you're getting it done. So I absolutely love that flexibility.
Did you have any big regrets from, say, like your early career to like the position you're in right now? Like either like an opportunity or something you just missed and wish you could turn back time to?
No. Well, my husband likes to tell me all the time, oh, you could have been an engineer a while ago. Why did you wait so many years? You could have done it right out of college. And he thinks like, oh, I lost a couple of years at that time. But I feel like those years of being a professor helped to build my leadership skills, and I excelled actually pretty quick in the 9 years that I've been at Northrop, because I went from a T2 to a T4 within 9 years, which is very much on track. So I accelerated faster in, I guess, my second career because of the experience that teaching gave me. So I don't like to think of it like as regrets, or if I just started when I got out of college, if I just started an engineer from when I was like 22, then I would have been even higher up. I don't have those regrets, because all of those experiences, even if it's a bad one, and there have been teams or programs I've been on where it sucked, and it was either I hated working with those people, I couldn't get along with them, or they were watching like what time I was coming in. I've had bosses like that, which makes no sense to me, but there's going to be bosses like that. It's best to learn from those experiences. The hardest jobs I've been on, I've actually learned the most. My department head, when I taught at Florida Institute of Technology, she was tough. She was like, the degree you have is not enough, take more classes. I was like, okay, fine, I really want to do this and take theoretical mathematics in the evening, great. I guess I'll have to do this. She really pushed me, but those extra 18 credits in mathematics is what got me to jump from a T1 to T2 when I started at Northrop, because they recognized those credits. That's why I have no regrets, because everything that I did helped me to be where I am now. Even like a hard experience or a failed experience teaches you more than a good experience. And you should never be bored. Once you start getting bored or content, that's a sign that you need to leave and start something else. So it's no longer like I look at your resume and like, oh, this guy's been here for 10 years, he must be great. No, I'm like, what was he doing? Was he doing the same thing for 10 years? You know, that so it's kind of flipped. The perspective has flipped now. If I see you learning new things every few years, that's kind of like what I'm looking at now when I look at a resume.
Thank you.
Would you recommend going straight for our master's or getting with the company?
No, get it paid for.
Get it paid for?
Sorry, I had to like.
No. Well, because here we have like that 4+1 program. So like it's just one extra year after you get your bachelor's, and then you can get your master's. I think it's like 30 credits, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, and then you can get your master's. So do you think that's worth it, or
Can you do an internship with that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, you can.
If you can do an internship with that, then I would say yes. I think the problem I have with seeing people do just education is that you are no longer as competitive as the folks with experience. And when it comes to like promotions and I look at your experience, we don't count how many years of schooling we did, but we do count your internships. So if you can show that you have relevant experience, even if it's an internship, that will help with your promotions in the future, because they look at, like, from an HR perspective, there is a minimum amount of years, you know, before they can promote you at a certain level. But we do count the the relevant internships as part of that experience. And also just in general, it's good to have industry experience. Like, I love the fact that I started as a systems engineer and then I got my certification in systems engineering, because I was able to understand what the content that the professor was talking about and directly apply to what I was doing. Otherwise, it's just all theory and concept. There's no application, and it's, when you look at like Bloomberg's taxonomy, you're kind of like at that lower levels because you're not applying it, which is at the higher levels of learning. So experience is more important, but that 4-to-1 thing looks like a good deal, and if you can tie in an internship with it, then it sounds like that's what you should do.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions for Susanna? No? All right, let's give Susanna a round of applause. It's okay at the end of it, we usually take a picture with the presenter. If that's okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's all sit down. Let's go take a picture. Susanna here.
Yeah.
So I've been getting on it.
I know, me too. It's been like a pretty crazy debate.
It's the same.
Yeah.
I'll just like